Thank you for listening to Fate Weaver, written by Elias T. Least. If you enjoy this novel, consider donating $1 through Cash App to $EliasLeast. And now, Fate Weaver. Chapter 6. Evolution of the Body. Cyrus found himself in a strange and disorienting world, a thick fog surrounding him, clinging to his skin like a second layer. The mist was so dense that he could barely see his outstretched hand, let alone determine his surroundings. It was as if he had been plunged into a void of nothingness, devoid of any sense of direction or orientation. He could feel the chill of the mist creeping through his clothes, raising goosebumps on his skin. But he couldn't tell if it was day or night, or even if time still existed in this eerie realm. Cyrus tried to move, but the mist seemed to hold him in place, and he wondered if he was trapped in some sort of supernatural limbo. Despite the overwhelming feeling of dread and despair, Cyrus refused to give up. He knew he was in the realm of demons, and he prepared his mind to be tortured for eternity. He did not know what he had done to deserve such a fate, but if this was the will of the gods, then he would obey and accept his suffering. After an unknown amount of time, the hauntingly beautiful voice of the Demon Queen drifted through the fog to taunt Cyrus once more. Accepted user attributes are currently below minimum requirement to gain access control. Cyrus knew that the demon was telling him that he wasn't good enough. She had already said that. If this was the torture that he had to endure for eternity, then his ideas of the demonic underworld were way off. He was sure the real torture would begin at any moment, and the demons were simply lulling him into a false sense of comfort. A green light came out of the mist that surrounded Cyrus as the voice said, "User information is as follows. Username, Cyrus, race, human, class, unknown, age, 15, level, 0, strength, 7, dexterity, 6, constitution, 5, intelligence, 5, wisdom, 5. As the panic started to rise within him, Cyrus struggled against the chains of fog that seemed to wrap around him, binding him in place like some sort of ethereal prison. The fog was like a living thing, pulsing and writhing around him, as if it were in league with the evil entities that had brought him here. These symbols appeared in his vision, meant to confuse and taunt him with his own ignorance. Cyrus felt a cold shiver run down his spine as the eerie green demon light outlined his naked body, illuminating him like a beacon of suffering. He knew deep down that this must be the beginning of his torture, and the realization made his heart race with fear. He could feel the heat of the light, as if it were about to burn him for all of eternity. The voice echoed once again through the fog. Automatic evolution to level 1 commencing. Attribute of strength gaining 3 points and rising to the minimum requirement for use of system control. The strength attribute represents the user's physical power and ability to perform tasks requiring brute force. The green demon light that had been tracing over Cyrus's body suddenly turned orange, causing him to tense up in anticipation of the pain of fire to come. He braced himself, gritting his teeth, as the light coalesced into a blindingly bright pinpoint that began to move over every inch of his body. He screamed in fear and pain at the impact of the searing agony, but to his surprise, there was none. Instead, he felt a strange warmth spreading through him, suffusing his body with a sensation that was equal parts pleasure and pain. He opened one eye to inspect what was going on, and it was as if the light was probing into his very soul, exploring every aspect of his being with an almost clinical detachment. He could not help but to laugh out loud at this ridiculous torture. As the orange light moved over every muscle of his body, Cyrus felt a strange sensation coursing through him. It was as if every fiber of his form was being remade, altered into something new and powerful. The orange light took its time, tracing every contour and curve of his physique with an almost loving precision, reshaping him in ways that he couldn't even begin to comprehend. He could feel himself getting stronger, not just a little stronger, but much stronger. Cyrus was amazed at the changes he could feel happening within him, marveling at the raw strength that was now at his disposal. He could feel the energy of the demon realm pulsing through him, fueling his newfound abilities and making him something more than human. As the light faded away, Cyrus realized that he had been reborn in the fires of the demon realm, and he swore that he would use the powers they gave him to tear down their dark towers and make them pay for taking his mother. As the light finished sculpting the muscles in his toes, the light changed to yellow, and the demon queen's voice echoed around him once again. Attribute of dexterity gaining 4 points and rising to the minimum requirement for use of system control. The dexterity attribute represents the user's agility and speed, as well as their ability to perform tasks requiring fine motor control. As the yellow light traced over Cyrus's body, he felt a sense of déjà vu wash over him. It was as if he were reliving the previous transformations all over again, but this time with a new sense of purpose. He could feel his ligaments and tendons loosening, becoming more pliant and flexible with each passing moment. The Demon Queen had not lied when she said she was reshaping him, making him faster and more agile than he ever thought possible. The thought occurred to him that perhaps she had chosen him for a reason. Maybe she wanted him to be her consort, to bear her demon children. The idea filled him with a mix of disgust and fascination, and he quickly pushed it to the back of his mind. Whatever the Demon Queen's plans were, he knew one thing for sure. He would not be her puppet. He would use his new power and speed to rip her horns off her head and bring her to her knees. The thought made him grin with savage glee, and he vowed to never stop until he had achieved his revenge against the demons who had dared to take him captive. The light was ready for its third phase, and changed from yellow to red, and just as expected, the demon voice sounded yet again. Attribute of Constitution gaining 5 points, and rising to the minimum requirement for use of system control. The Constitution attribute represents the user's health and resilience, as well as their ability to resist disease, poisons, and other hazards. The red light traced a different path this time, spending a lot of time on Cyrus's chest and lungs. He could feel the energy of the light probing into every nook and cranny of his respiratory system, reinvigorating him in ways that he couldn't even begin to comprehend. As the light moved on, it followed every vein in his body, illuminating them like rivers of molten metal flowing just beneath his skin. Cyrus could feel the difference immediately, as if he were suddenly more vitalized and healthier than he had ever been before. His breathing came easier, and he felt a renewed sense of strength and stamina coursing through him. The Demon Queen had promised to reshape him into something new, and it seemed she was keeping her word. Cyrus was amazed at the changes he could feel happening within him, and he marveled at the raw power that was now at his disposal. He found himself wanting more, and grinned knowing that he would never bow to his new masters. Chapter 7. Evolution of the Mind. Now the light began to fade to blue, and he felt the fog tighten its grip on his form as the evil voice echoed around him for the 4th time. Attribute of Intelligence gaining 5 points and rising to the minimum requirement for use of system control. The Intelligence attribute represents the user's mental acuity and problem-solving ability, as well as their knowledge and ability to learn new skills. The blue light was different from the others. It pointed directly between Cyrus's eyes, almost as if it was seeking to penetrate his soul. He felt an odd vibration in his head, as if the light were drilling down into the very core of his being. Then, without warning, the world changed. Knowledge flooded his mind, overwhelming him with a dizzying array of concepts and ideas. The symbols that had been displayed in the fog were now written words that he could comprehend, each one unlocking a new door of understanding within him. Mathematics, linguistics, evolution, physics, all of it was fed into his mind in a torrent of information, and he relished it. He felt as if his mind were expanding, growing beyond its previous limitations, as if he were becoming something more than human. The blue light had given him the gift of knowledge, and he knew that he would never be the same again. As the flood of knowledge continued to pour into his mind, Cyrus began to understand that he was not in some demonic realm, but in a place that was beyond his understanding. He did not know what powers had created the voice that spoke to him, but he knew that they were not of this world. As he absorbed more and more information, Cyrus realized that he had been chosen for a purpose, that he was a part of something greater than himself. And yet, as much as he wanted to share this newfound understanding with his people, he knew that there were things that they could not and would not accept. The knowledge that he had gained would change their lives in ways they couldn't even imagine, but it would also challenge their beliefs and their way of life. Cyrus knew that he would have to be careful with the information he shared, that he would have to find a way to ease his people into this new reality without overwhelming them. It was a daunting task, but he was not alone. The voice that had brought him here was still with him, guiding him, and he knew that he could not fail in this mission. There was one thing that had not changed. That was his need to save his mother. The blue light still did not move, and he relished in the knowledge that he had gained. It would possibly take him a lifetime to sort through all of it. The light now turned back to green. Cyrus thought that this meant that his transformation was almost done. He was wrong. The voice that he now found intelligently seductive came through once again. Attribute of wisdom gaining 5 points and rising to the minimum requirement for use of system control. The wisdom attribute represents the user's perceptiveness and intuition, as well as their ability to make wise decisions and avoid danger. Cyrus had thought that his world had changed earlier when he learned about science and nature, but that was only the tip of what was out there. The green light introduced him to a new concept called philosophy, and it was as if a veil had been lifted from his eyes. The ideas that now ran through his mind were infinite, as if he were glimpsing the very fabric of reality itself. He marveled at the way that concepts could interweave and connect, creating a tapestry of thought that was both beautiful and terrifying. The more he learned, the more he realized how little he knew, and yet the hunger for knowledge continued to grow within him. Cyrus could almost understand the concept of infinity, the idea that there was no end to the universe and that every thought he had was just a tiny part of a greater whole. The green light had shown him a new way of thinking, a way of looking at the world that was both exhilarating and humbling. He knew that he would never be the same again. Reeling from these new thoughts, he was barely able to concentrate on the intricate wording written in the display above him. He could see that all his attributes, but one had been changed to 10. His charisma will be next. Right on time, the artificial intelligence that was the system control made another announcement. Attribute of charisma gaining 4 points and rising to the minimum requirement for use of system control. The charisma attribute represents the user's charm and persuasiveness, as well as their ability to influence others and negotiate effectively. The light now changed to a deep purple, and Cyrus could feel it both changing his appearance and flooding his mind with new knowledge. This time the focus was on psychology, and he felt as if he were being rewired from the inside out. Concepts like interpersonal communication, body language, and proper posture were all suddenly clear to him, as if they had been hidden behind a veil his entire life. He could understand the motivations of others with an eerie accuracy, as if he were reading their thoughts. The purple light had transformed him in ways he never thought possible, and he marveled at the newfound clarity of his thoughts. He felt as if he could see through the world like a crystal, understanding the hidden motivations and desires of those around him. And yet, even as he reveled in this newfound power, he knew that it was a double-edged sword. With great knowledge came great responsibility, and he knew that he would have to be careful how he used this gift. Cyrus was both amazed and frightened at the changes he could feel happening within him, and he knew that he would have to tread carefully in this new world of knowledge and power. He felt the chain like fog loosen around his skin, allowing him a modicum of freedom. The voice echoed in his head once again. Evolution programming complete. 6-month stasis activating in 10, 9, 8. Somehow he knew that this was all going on inside his head. He didn't know where his physical body was, but it was not floating in a void of gray mist getting hit by some world-changing laser. And did she just say 6 months? Cyrus yelled, "Hey, wait! Wait!" The countdown came to a halt. Stasis activation temporarily suspended for the approved user, Cyrus. He was uncertain about the time he had left. Perhaps he could only ask one question. You informed me that all of my attributes have been elevated to the minimum requirements for system use. I see that this amounts to a score of 10 across the board. That is accurate. All abilities were increased to 10 to fulfill the minimum required attribute level, responded the female artificial intelligence. Cyrus hurried to continue before he could be interrupted. What are the typical scores of an ordinary human? There was a brief pause before the answer came. The average ability score of a normal human is 10. Countdown recommencing for a 6-month stasis period. Cyrus fell silent, processing this information and understanding that his people were all considerably below average. He grasped the fact that he would be in a sleep-like state for half a year, and could only hope that his village would tend to his body for that duration. He glanced up at the display floating in the air, still marveling at the notion of reading. There were countless questions he wanted to ask, but time was a luxury he did not have. He closed his eyes and relaxed. The status display still hovered in the darkness as he slowly lost consciousness. Username: Cyrus. Race: human. Class: Temporal Warrior. Age: 15. Level 1. Experience: 60 out of 100. Strength: 10. Dexterity: 10. Constitution: 10. Intelligence: 10. Wisdom: 10. Charisma: 10. 3, 2, 1. Stasis activated. Chapter 8. Awakening. Cyrus awakened to a pitch-black darkness. His eyes strained to adjust to the absence of light, but he could see nothing. A shiver ran through his body as he realized he was lying on a cold stone slab. The frigid air bit at his exposed skin. As he sat up, his hands searched for any source of warmth. He recognized a familiar musty smell and realized that he was in the tomb of the ancestors, the burial place of his village's most revered and respected elders. The ancestors had been laid to rest here since before the time of the elders' memories. In his mind's eye, he knew that the walls around him were adorned with intricate carvings and mosaics, their meaning lost to the ages. He could tell that outside, winter's icy grip had taken hold, and the tomb was just as frigid as the harsh, snowy world beyond. Cyrus's breath came out in unseen white puffs as he struggled to sit up, feeling the weight of his responsibilities as the son of the village. He knew he must leave this place and use his newfound knowledge and skills to protect his people and lead them into a new age. Cyrus's mind reeled as the female voice echoed through his head. He blinked in confusion before the words finally registered. Evolution complete. Control system activated. User Cyrus accepted. A surge of energy flowed through him, and he felt as if his very essence had been transformed. A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips as he responded with a hint of mischief. "Hello, my demon queen." The voice in his mind remained silent for a moment before he recognized a slight playful emotion ring through his thoughts, and he knew that the mysterious AI had accepted his light-hearted greeting. With a sense of renewed purpose, Cyrus readied himself for the challenges that lie ahead, his resolve strengthened by the knowledge that he had a powerful ally in the voice that was guiding him. As Cyrus made his way along the wall in the darkness, his thoughts were a jumbled mess. His new sense of foresight allowed him to perceive the slightest shifts in the environment around him, and he could feel the potential consequences of each move he made. He moved to the left, feeling a faint ripple of energy in the air, a warning that he was about to trip over a loose rock. In his mind's eye, he saw himself stumbling and falling, his body tumbling into the darkness. With a deft sidestep, he managed to avoid the rock, the adrenaline pumping through his veins as he realized the potential of his newfound precognition. As he moved through the blackness of the burial chamber, he felt the pulse of energy within him, guiding him towards his destination. Finally, he reached a massive door, rough-hewn and ancient, looming before him like a sentinel of the past. As Cyrus pushed the door open, a blinding light and a freezing blast of air hit him full in the face. He recoiled, shielding his eyes against the harsh glare, and quickly slammed the door shut again. The biting cold of the outdoors had penetrated his cloth burial clothing that he wore, and he knew that he needed warmer clothing if he was to survive the journey ahead. The elders must have mistaken his induced stasis sleep as his death and placed him here. He was honored knowing what deep meaning this had. With a sense of reverence, he lit the torches by the entrance and began to search through the ancestors' tomb, offering thanks to each for their sacrifice and generosity. The flickering from the flame cast eerie shadows across the stone walls as he rummaged through the long-abandoned artifacts of the past. Finally, he found a trove of winter gear, crafted from the finest materials and imbued with a sense of history and tradition. He donned the warmest and sturdiest clothes he could find, layering on furs and thick leather boots. The wolf pelt of an ancient king covered his shoulders, its fur soft and supple beneath his fingers. The blackened leather of the recent pyre clung tightly to his body, lending an air of mystery to his appearance. He felt like a warrior of old, ready to face the challenges of the harsh winter wilderness. As he stepped out into the blinding light, he realized that the special skill that he received after his evolution, his foresight, was even more powerful than he had initially thought. His vision was awash with ghostly images, each movement he made causing a ripple of energy to spread through his senses. It was like walking through a shifting dreamscape, a constantly evolving scene that demanded his full attention. Every time he considered taking a step or making a turn, the image of his own body moved ahead of him like a faded ghost, showing him the potential consequences of his actions. It was dizzying, overwhelming, and he knew that he would need some time to get used to this new reality. As Cyrus tested his newfound foresight, he quickly realized that the range of the future he could see was limited to just 2 seconds ahead. It wasn't much, but he could already see how this new ability could prove to be incredibly useful in a variety of situations. With just a quick glimpse, Cyrus could now predict the movements of those around him, allowing him to anticipate danger and avoid obstacles. He felt a sense of empowerment, knowing that he could now make split-second decisions that could save lives. As he continued to test his foresight, Cyrus began to see the potential of his new ability. He could use it to gain an advantage in games and competitions, or even to solve puzzles and riddles. The possibilities were endless, and he couldn't wait to explore them all. Although he was still trying to come to terms with the reality of his newfound power, Cyrus felt a sense of excitement and curiosity, eager to see where this ability would take him. He knew that he had been given a gift, and he was determined to use it to its fullest potential. As Cyrus stood on the precipice of this vast expanse, he couldn't help but reflect on how the world had once seemed so small and confined. In his earlier days, the mysteries of science, technology, and even the written word had been as distant as the 3 sisters that dotted the night sky, far beyond the reach of his comprehension. But now, with the inner mechanisms of his mind unlocked and his intellectual horizons expanded, Cyrus saw the world in an entirely new light. The snow that blanketed the landscape, once a uniform white plain, now revealed itself as a symphony of countless unique crystals, each with their own intricate patterns, weaving a story of their journey through the frigid atmosphere. As Cyrus marveled at the newfound clarity of his thoughts, he realized that his primitive village, too, had the potential for greatness that lay dormant within its people. He envisioned a future where their understanding of the world would grow, unlocking the secrets of the universe and harnessing its power to improve their lives. Yet, with this epiphany, came the humbling realization that there was an unfathomable breadth of knowledge that still lay undiscovered, just beyond the grasp of his newfound intellect. This vast universe of untapped wisdom and insight, once invisible to his untrained mind, was now a tantalizing mystery that beckoned him to explore its depths. Thank you for listening to Fate Weaver by Elias T. Least. Feel free to subscribe to the channel for exclusive original works from this author. All donations and proceeds from this work go directly to him. Cash App $EliasLeast. Copyright 2023.